Welcome back to this live recorded episode of the Small Business Sweet Spot. I'm your host, Barb Davids, and this is a very special episode because it's titled A Web Designer, a Copywriter, and an SEO Strategist Walk into a Bar. And I have with me today a web designer and a copywriter. So I will introduce them and then we'll jump in. We have a web design business coach, Josh Hall. And then we have copywriter Emily. So thank you both for joining me. I'm so glad you're here, Emily and Josh.
Thanks for having us. This is so exciting. And we are not actually in bars, as you can tell, probably.
I know that would have been way more interesting, but hey, we'll make it work here.
It would have been because it's 7:30 a.m. my time. So that would have been a little scary. Although it's not like I've never done that. So I guess
that's what mimosas are for. So
right, exactly. Okay, so I think what we'll do is start with sort of a round robin, introduce ourselves briefly. I do want to try and keep it maybe less than 40 minutes if we can. And we'll just give a brief description of our sweet spots, our respective sweet spots, who we help and how. And then I want to have you guys answer a question, one of these fun icebreakers, right? Is it a crime to wear socks with sandals? Because we need to know, Emily and Josh.
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
But yes,
absolutely.
Let me just pose it this way. I wouldn't choose that, but I also feel that everyone should express themselves how they want to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more practical.
Answer.
If you have a sock on a sandal, the sandal's going to be sliding, your toes get stuck in it. It just doesn't all around seem like a good idea. Plus, I just wouldn't recommend it stylistically.
Yeah, I am with that too. So let's go back and I'll answer mine and then we'll answer our sweet spot. So I would say it's definitely a crime. And it's mostly just because a lot of people also wear them with the flip-flop thing. So it goes in between the toe. And I cannot stand that look for the life of me.
That's a sensory nightmare right there.
Exactly. All right. So let's go around and Emily, I'll have you start first. Just give a brief description of your sweet spot.
My sweet spot is helping business owners specifically to see the things that are inside of them that they do better and differently than everybody else, and then bringing those to life on their website in the words. I had somebody the other day ask me what a copywriter is, and it's not the little C thing at the bottom of your website. It's the actual words that go on your website and tell your customers about you.
Yeah, isn't that funny? We don't know what they don't know, and it seems so obvious as we are the people doing it. So, all right. And Josh, your sweet spot.
My sweet spot is helping web designers grow and build their business. So I have a community called Web Designer Pro, and that's exactly what we do there. Courses and community and coaching to help web designers, mainly on the business side of things. But we talk a lot of design and conversions too, which I'm sure are going to come into play here.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And then my first question is, do we want to tell the joke first or do we want to wait till the end? What do you guys think?
I think the joke sets us up nicely for your first kind of question, actually.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Let's do that then. I'm going to read off the joke because there's no way I can memorize this. All right. I'm going to use Emily's clear my throat here. A website designer, a copywriter, and an SEO strategist walk into a bar. The bartender asks, "What do you have it?" Frowning, the designer says, "I've got some ideas, but I'll order once I've seen what the others are drinking." The bartender sticks an empty glass on the bar to hold their place. The copywriter pipes up, "I'll have a beer, please." Then quickly turns to the SEO strategist and asks under the breath, "Should I have said like cold one or pint or brewski or ale instead of like what in this part of the world?" Thinking this over, the SEO decides beer's fine. They say, "But you'll get a better result if you specifically specify whether you want it in a glass, a bottle, or a can." So nodding, the copywriter orders 3 bottles of beer. And the bartender is left thinking, wow, that was just a lot to order 3 bottles of beer. So that's the joke.
Now we insert hilarity.
Wait,
laughter.
Hold on. I got you, Barb.
Uh-oh, what you got?
There we go.
Where is it? Are you sharing something?
We don't hear anything, but it sounds like it would be funny, Josh.
Did it not go through? Hold on. Did that not go through?
No.
I'm
Oh,
sure,
it was,
you know what? I'm sure the audience is roaring right
it was
now.
supposed to be a rim shot. It was a doo.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's good. So the idea was, so Emily and I met in Podmatch, and we were talking about how these industries align so closely with website marketing and for small business owners doing their websites. And the idea that um, we just all work together so nicely, I guess. And so we started talking about it and we joked about it. And I don't even know how the joke came into play, but then I went and wrote a blog post real quick for it. And then I was like, oh, it would be nice to have a website designer and a copywriter to talk about all three of these things and see it from each other's perspectives, basically. And so when you take a look at that joke and you switch beer with website, it kind of puts that in perspective, I think. So let's start, like Emily said, let's start with that first question about let me see, I wrote it down. I don't want to forget how I said it. So what do you think comes first? It kind of think about the chicken and the egg, but I want to know your opinion about what you think should come first as a business owner who's, I think, maybe creating their first site, even if they're doing like a rebranding. So Josh, I'll let you tackle that one first.
As far as which one to go first, specifically, of course, I'm going to be partial because I can't imagine. I'm trying to think of this from the client's point of view, because if you were to say, let's purely work on the words or SEO, I feel like visually it's easier to get clients through the door and to get them started if they see something visual. That said, we all know that the words on a website are very, very important to the entire website with how it's going to actually not only engage somebody, but convert somebody. And we all know as well that SEO, if you don't start a website with at least the idea of SEO in mind, it's going to be a lot of work in the future. So it is tough. I mean, yes, in an ideal world, if you could have a balance between all three, an SEO foundation, the good words and the copy, along with a good structure, layout, design, and user experience, that would be ideal. I would personally, if I could give a quick answer and not the long political answer, I would say have words like good copywriting best practices in a design. Start with the design and then go further into words. I'm sorry, Barb, but I would actually say SEO could come a little bit later, just because you can pretty easily change titles and do SEO work, whereas changing a layout or a design, especially if there's a lot of pages, could be a lot of work. So I would say design and copy are very, very close together in the beginning, and then SEO could be followed up.
I'm so hurt. I'm just devastated. I'm just kidding. I'll give you my answer in a minute. Emily, what do you think?
I think it's a chicken and the egg situation, and neither came first. The chicken made the egg and the egg made the chicken. I actually just had this conversation with two website designers and a fellow copywriter, like literally moments ago. And we all agreed that it could kind of go either way. Some website designers I work with like to design around the copy, and I also can write around a design. So it sort of, for me, goes either way. However, I will say when it comes to SEO, I love working alongside an SEO strategist because, to Josh's point, while it may still stay like design intact, I don't like to go back and like change those beautiful headlines that like the super clever, quippy ones. I don't want them to be SEO-ified. I want to know what I'm in for at the beginning. I will say, like, copy, design, and how your SEO plays into all of that, it is part of your branding. So if you are truly like in a rebrand, or you're branding from scratch, like I think your best bet is to bring both the chicken and the egg in at the same time.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I actually am going to agree with Josh on the SEO, ironically enough, considering, however, with a little bit of a catch, because I do feel like with SEO, you have the ability to change later. It's not like you can't, change it up. But I think the keyword research to do in the beginning is very important when it comes to the copy. And I have worked with so many people, and sometimes it is easier for copywriters to fit the copy inside of the design. But I feel like that happens more often when there's not enough direction on what to write about, or there's not a clear enough messaging direction, or the person doesn't know quite what they want to put there. So but I get that too, like trying to start somewhere with the design. So I think I'm going to lean towards the messaging, the copywriting first, if I had to pick one, and then that would go into the design. But also I'd never realized until, I guess, the past couple of years, like when I first started, I didn't see it. The messaging and the copy is so closely aligned with the SEO and the design. Those, once you bring people in, then the messaging like keeps them there, and then the design converts them, is kind of how I see the flow going. But
it may also depend too, if there's a copywriter or whoever's writing the copy can envision that on a website. Like if there's somebody who does copy who has absolutely no frame of reference for a typical website design, they're likely going to write like a small book, and that's going to be very hard to then take that and piece it into a design. Whereas if you have a design conscious copywriter, that might be a good tagline for anyone who does copy, is like your design focused copy. It's going to be easier to implement that. Otherwise, I mean, we've all had clients who send us like multiple paragraphs and say, this is what I want on the front page. And then you're like, oh, okay. Now we need to like pick out the highlights and pick out the headings. And so I think that's where I totally get started with copy first. I think in an ideal world, that would be the best, but I just know practically that if you can morph copy into a design, it's easier for most people. Okay. Therefore, I'm going to stick to my guns and say design, copy, SEO.
Okay. That sounds good. I am going to take a minute and just look at the comments here. We'll bring some up and see if we have any comments to respond back to. So Jared says, I think most clients are emotionally invested in the design, like it represents their opinion of their business. So for me, a close second is content. For SEO, most customers don't understand it, I think. And I being in it, I definitely agree. I'll let you, Emily, take this one. Do you have any comments on Jared's comment?
I agree. I mean, he was kind of speaking to the point I was, where content to me is part of your branding, like the messaging is part of your branding. And so I do think that it gives you a sense of confidence behind the website once the website is launched,
Mm-hmm. Josh?
Yeah, spot on. And this is why, like initially when I said I think clients think design first, there is typically, it is something emotional, it's personal, and because clients are generally not thinking about messaging and conversion and SEO at first. They should, absolutely. But typically when they think I need a new website, they just think of what it's going to look like. So it is kind of all of our jobs, even the website designer, to really push copy and SEO and the importance of all that. Although we also all know what happens after a website goes live. You get a call from a client 30 days later and they're like, hey, why isn't my website at the top of Google? It's like, oh, well, we didn't even do the SEO yet. So I really like this conversation. It's one reason I wanted to be a part of it, is because I think it's time for web designers to really, really push these big three. I mean, these are like the holy trinity of a great web design presence. Design, copy, and SEO. Clients need to understand that these things all work together in tandem and are very important. And the good news is you could technically start a project with any one of these three and get the end result that's the same. You could start design first, start copy first, or start SEO first. Yeah, in an ideal world with a perfect budget, you could do all three. But the good news is, like, it all works, but it's our job to really make sure clients know these big three.
I would agree with that, because nothing's set in stone. And I think a lot of small business owners, and I've done this before myself, we get so wrapped up in the details and being able to make everything perfect, but everything can be changed. There is nothing that cannot be changed in as far as business, as far as your offers, as far as your service. I feel like everything is fluid like that. So I definitely like that piece of it.
Except, Barb, the URL. You were on my podcast recently, and you talked about the importance of a URL. That is something that you definitely don't want to mess with, especially if it's ranking.
There's a way to get around that, and that's called redirection. But yes, true. You're right.
But that's a little bit of a headache.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Oh, all right. Let's go on to a couple more just quick comments, and then we'll get into the next question. So we have here Mark Hyde Creative says, you got to get folks to the website, but if the website looks crappy, they're leaving anyways. That is very true. Josh, I'm sure you have a comment on that one.
Yeah, I say preach it, Mark. Absolutely. Yeah, and that is the thing where I think, and I have this same mindset for businesses that want to go right into marketing services. to where we got to look at your website. Where is all the marketing funneling to? It's likely going to funnel to your website. Your website is a home. That's another important tip for all web designers to tell clients, is to remember that your website is your home. You notice, like on all of our StreamYard pictures here, we have our URLs under our name. It's not our social media. I mean, that could be the case, but typically you want people to go to your website. So it's your home. Therefore, that's why I recommend, let's make sure that's in place before we reach out to the interwebs on social marketing, ads, or SEO.
Yep. And then we have Derek Short, who's got one for copywriting. He says that goes first, and then SEO, and then website design.
So Derek, I want to springboard off. I think it was Mark that just made the comment. I actually am like one of those copywriters where if somebody comes to me and they don't have a web designer at least ready to go to implement, it's a little cringy for me, because to everyone's point, like if you get them on a website that has like amazing words but looks really, really bad, they're likely going to bounce. So I don't know. I'm kind of now I'm sort of seeing which came even before the chicken and the egg. And it might be the website design.
Let me ask you, Barb, because as an SEOer, do you, like, if you were to take on an SEO client that had a horrible website, it's not going to convert, it's going to have trouble ranking because it's so bad, would you even take on a project like that? Or would you advise them that they get their website, in a better shape before you go further into SEO?
So I would help them with that. And I wouldn't take it on unless they would agree to doing a website redesign, either through me or through somebody else. And so I would work with partners to do that. So they wouldn't have to go through necessarily on their own and try and figure it out, but they would have to agree to redo it, or at least make some adjustments, maybe not even do an overhaul, but doing some adjustments to the page itself. Because I firmly believe that SEO isn't just about grabbing people from Google and getting them to your website. It's about converting after the click as well. Because otherwise, why spend money on it if you get them there, but you can't convert them? That's the whole point. So
these chat comments are cracking me up. And Derek, it's okay to change your mind. I kind of did too. So I think.
Where'd he go? There he is.
Open and change my mind. Yep.
Mark, I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but that's all right. And then we have one more we'll go through. Steve Brinky says, most of my clients have no idea what SEO is and how it affects a website's ranking. They understand words matter, but generally not how to write good copy. Most say, I want my website to look like. That's very true. How many times have you heard that one, Josh? I want my website to look like.
All the time. That's what I mean. Like, they start visual, and it makes sense as a business owner. You're just thinking about what your website looks like. They're not thinking about conversion rates on forums or bounce rate or things like that. And that's why I do think that web design is a good entry point. But again, the reason I think this is so important, especially nowadays, is to make a high value website, it's got to be something more than just something that looks pretty. It really needs to have high converting copy, a user journey that's intentional, and good SEO, like good sound SEO, especially with the wake of AI, with how like Google overviews and everything. I think SEO, I think a lot of people are writing it off. So I think there's actually a huge opportunity for it. And I think the work that goes into SEO now is going to, pay off for a very long time. So, yeah.
All right, let's go into the next question we have. So, let's see, how to approach when working. Okay, I think this is a good, actually, let me go into the common mistake, because I think that will help business owners. So what's one common mistake business owners make when it comes to their website that could be avoided by having all three of us involved from the start? Emily, I'll let you take that one first.
I'm going to just keep my answer real simple. It looks bad. It sounds bad. It doesn't work. Those are the complaints I would hear, that the mistake of not hiring either all three at once or, in tandem with each other is what I hear.
Josh?
Can you ask the question again, Barb? I'm sorry. I was responding to Alan's question in the chat.
Yeah.
It was a really good one.
That's okay. I know I can't do two things at once, so I'm always like, okay.
I know, same.
What's one common business mistake owners make when it comes to their website that could be avoided by having all three of us involved from the start?
Oh, gosh. I'll probably go back to what I just said a little bit ago, which is starting with some sort of marketing and traffic service, but not having a good converting website. I do think that's common. I think,
Okay.
and I had a lot of clients who did this to where they invested thousands of dollars, sometimes a month, in a marketing agency, and then we looked at their website. And I'm like, this is so bad. No wonder you didn't get any leads through. So that's definitely the one that I experienced as a web designer the most.
Yeah. As an SEO, that's my answer too, actually. I think, and I go with it looks bad, it doesn't work. That has been the biggest one, or they come to me with most of the time they come to me after the fact, right? They put up the website and they think, oh, traffic should just come, and then it doesn't. And then it's like, okay, well, that's not even part of it. A lot of them don't have blogs. And so that takes the cake for trying to get copy and get blogs and then get the traffic to the website. It doesn't just, build it. It will come to sort of answer. So, all right, let's go into what's your approach when working with a client who's really, really struggling to see the value in investing in either design, copy, or SEO, and how do you explain the benefit to them? So maybe we'll go into our respective industries, and if somebody is having a hard time trying to figure out if they should spend the money on it, and I'll let you start with that one, Josh.
In most cases, I think you need to help clients think about their website, and it sounds so cliche and cheesy, but it's so true. But as a salesperson, like a 24/7 salesperson, this is an investment in your business that is going to last all day, all night. It's ongoing for as long as you have the website and continue to optimize it. Really, what we're getting to is the idea of thinking about their website as an investment and not an expense. And clients do tend to think about, well, $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 for a new website, that's a big expense. But if they view that as an investment in their business, that's what helps them change their mindset with that I've found. Practically, one way I did this, like on a very, very like real practical granular level, is I would say, well, how much like does your average customer pay you in a year? And if they say like $5,000 for their services, I would say, well, if we do the website for $5,000, that means just converting one customer is going to pay for the website. And then when it converts another one, it's all profit on top of that. So as a practical example, if you can help your clients think about if the website even gets one or two more customers a month, how much more would that add to their business? There's a mindset thing there, and then there's a money thing there. So I would think through that.
Okay. Emily, what about you with copywriting?
All right. So often I think what I hear in resistance to copywriting is that they can quote unquote write it themselves. And I work with a web designer, Robin White of RDW Design Studio, and she said it perfectly this morning. She said, you may have learned how to write in school, but you didn't learn how to write website copy, which is in essence sales or conversion copy. And I loved how she said that. And I would also add, like, the way that we move about a website as human beings, as we've learned to kind of like navigate the web, it's like a very particular way. And that's where experts have like spent time learning how we move through websites, how we make buying decisions, and they can help you write in that way. And then when I really need to cement it, I will say, I will look at somebody's copy that they have already on their website. And what I see often is either they're really, really good at like talking about themselves and writing about themselves, but they completely ignore addressing the clients, or they're really terrible at talking about themselves and don't actually know how to talk about their business at all. So I kind of see it going like one of two ways. And all that to say, it really is an art and a science, writing website copy. And like, that's what a copywriter does, is they help you pull out the pieces of your message that are impactful and important and going to attract the kind of clients you want. So just referring back to Robin one more time, I loved this question. And I think like we could all use this as, helping people to make the decision for this investment. Is your messaging attracting the kind of clients that you want? Is your website attracting the kind of clients that you want? And I thought that was like beautifully said.
That was beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you,
Josh,
Robin.
thank you. Yes. So from an SEO perspective, first of all, nobody knows what it is, search engine optimization. Once they know what it is and they want to think about doing it, they think, oh, I got to wait forever to do it. And I don't want to keep spending money every single month to do it. So here's my take on it. It's a matter of understanding that I kind of go against the grain on this one. I think it's okay that you just set it up once, the SEO once. You get your website technically sound, because sometimes that doesn't happen when it's being created on the web design side. There's a lot of web designers now that are incorporating it. I know, Josh, a lot of your community is starting to incorporate SEO with their packages and their services, which I think is fantastic because it goes so closely together. And then once you get it set up and you have it ready to go, there's no errors, and all the copy is written in the way that it needs to, then you need to figure out how to get people to come in. And you can just do that once, like figure out your keywords. But the waiting part is the waiting for Google to see it, right? And the waiting for it to take effect. It's not the SEO itself. That gets done. Then you move into content marketing. And so what you can do to figure out the return on it is you track it. So you have your website bringing in leads from the blog posts. You have it tracking from whatever channel it's coming from, whether it be Instagram or organic search or paid ads. And then you tie that into your lead generation, and then you track that to whether or not it closes, and bam, you got your ROI. So it's a little bit easier to stomach the investment that's going on, because it does start from like, $100 a month, which I would never, ever recommend SEO for $100 a month, all the way up to who knows what. But so I'm not going to give you an average number because it varies so highly with, I think, all of it does. But
I do feel for copywriters when it comes to tracking, because I feel like copy is probably the hardest thing to track. You can track SEO probably the easiest because there are actual platforms, and you can show your clients like, hey, you were on page 3, now you're on page 1. Or you moved up 10 spots this month, or whatever it is. With design, it's easy in the sense of you see the results instantaneously. So design aspects are the easiest thing to sell as far as a quick win. Conversions kind of blend in between design and copy, but copy is tough to track because people aren't like, I read your headline and it resonated with me so much. And I filled out the contact form that was nice and short. And then I loved your conditional logic. Like, clients aren't going to say that. But the way I would track, not to take us off topic, but the way I would track copy is just notice, kind of going back to your other point, like, who are you attracting? Like Emily said, like, are you attracting the right clients? If you do seem to be getting better clients, it's probably your copy. I'd say 100% it's your copy.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's take a moment to go over to comments again and see what we've got in here.
Yeah, the chat is hot right now. It's great.
Okay, so we have a question. How do you respond when a client is asked for a quote for a website with basic SEO? I don't even know. Is there basic SEO? I know, Josh, tell me, what do you got?
What I did, and it worked so well, was I called it SEO Boost. And it was for $4.99. And a lot of web designer pros, Justin, you're in pro, I'd recommend trying this out. Go through the SEO course and go back through that lesson on selling SEO Boost. But it basically just gives web designers a chance to lay just an SEO foundation for either the homepage or a couple service pages. And I found $500 to be a good starter point. That's really fair. So I would only do very, very basic keyword research, title, metadata, and maybe tweak a couple of the content pieces in the page. But if you do that for a homepage and a couple service pages, that's what I would consider kind of like a decent foundation for SEO. Okay. So that's what I would sell, is just a boost plan for 500 or maybe 1,000 if they want to do like 5 pages or something.
I just want to say, I love the word boost over audit. Like, a lot of times when I'm doing a copy review, I've named it review, but I used to call it audit, and people get scared of audits. So I really like a boost. I'm going to start using that, Josh.
And there may be a difference. Like, boost would be the actual work after a review. So yeah, that would be like the product to sell after, like an audit or review. But I agree. I think the audit is just so, the term audit is everyone thinks about the IRS, like, oh my God, they're going to audit me. So yeah, review. Yeah, then we could come up with a cool word on that.
Yeah.
All right. I have another question here from Colin. How do you get a client to buy into hiring a copywriter when they already have existing copy on their old website?
I hope that I answered that a little bit on talking about, like, is your messaging attracting the kind of person that you want it to be, and also showing them maybe how, with the value of like writing it in a from a sales perspective and conversion perspective, rather than maybe what they were taught. Like a 5-paragraph essay, I'm sure you can write a wonderful one, and it doesn't belong on your website. I have a website designer I was just talking to, and she was saying how the client is very, very attached to his former copy. So for now, she's going to let it be, and she's going to design a fresh site and such. And then she's going to bring that conversation up again down the road after testing the website design and seeing if that made any changes. So I think that's great too. And that's why I think website designers and copywriters do so well working together, because we can kind of say, well, the reason the copy might not be working is because you actually don't have a nice web design, or vice versa.
And I was just thinking, to your point, Emily, if you can test it in an ideal world, that would be the best, because you could say, let's go for 30 days or 60 days with, your copy, and then 60 days with our copy. And then let's look at the results. How many people are clicking through or staying on the site? And then, if you're really attached to your copy, what's more important to you, what you have or results? So yeah, I think if you could A/B test it, and again, in an ideal situation, an ideal world, that would be great. Or if you can show examples of doing that. Yeah.
So I had a copywriter update a blog post for a client of mine, and there was a significant change in traffic going to the web page and in leads generated from that page, because we could track that it came from that page. And all we did was update the copy on the page. We didn't change the URL. We did maybe add an image, but that was one way that we were able to do it, just because we saw it declining in being able to generate leads and traffic. So we made some adjustments, and then we were able to see that change too. So, because there's not a real way to do A/B testing on unless you have two different ones and it loads on the page with some tool, right? So that was kind of fun. All right, let's go to this question. Describe a horror story that you inherited from a client because of missing one of these key components. So I will say, Josh, do you have one ready?
My mind is overloaded. They're definitely, honestly, I would say it was probably 50-50 between design and copy. SEO was almost given. It was very rare that somebody had a good SEO presence, although there were a couple times where we had projects where we had to be really, really careful with their SEO, which, if anything is going to make it easier to sell SEO, it's with a redesign that does have a high domain authority, because you can say, listen, we do not want to touch what you currently have in place with your SEO, because you actually have good rankings, but maybe it's the copy or the design that needs to go further. So yeah, it was pretty, it was pretty easy even before I had copy even on my mind as a designer. It was pretty easy to tell, yeah, I don't even understand what you do. And then once we get into the design, it's pretty easy to take a horror story and clean it up a little bit with some decent design. Yeah. So without, calling out anyone in particular, those were the common situations where it was usually just complete confusion with what they do, or just atrocious, god awful design with no hierarchy, absolutely confusing, and just made me want to leave as fast as I could.
Yeah. Emily.
Yeah, mine is, I have a lot, and I've actually changed some of the way that I work with people because of it, but it's really when somebody decides to design it themselves, and then they blast it out onto the internet and say Emily helped me as my copywriter. And I go look at it and I'm like, oh my God, please, can we untag me? I don't want anyone to know I was attached to this, because I do, but I'm being a little exaggeratory, but it really is painful to watch somebody not implement the copy well, and not see what's supposed to be headlines and what's supposed to be bullet points, and how things are supposed to flow on the page. So that's one. And then the other one is just when I see somebody not understanding SEO and they come to me saying, I want you to use these keywords, and they'll use keywords that they want to use. I'm going to use life coach as a great example. people are like, well, I wanted to say, I want to use the keyword life coach or transformational life coach, like all over my website. And I'm like, okay. And that may or may not work for you, depending on what your clients are searching into Google. So they just want to use basically, they think keywords are their keywords, not keywords of their client's perspective. So I have that going, both ways with both of you.
Yeah, those are good. So for mine, I have redesigns. So what happens with, and most of the time with the redesigns, is somebody will relaunch their website with brand new copy, brand new design, and then all of a sudden, crickets. Or they've lost all the traffic that they had before is a really common one. And it is very disappointing and disheartening, and thinking you've spent all this time in a new copy, all this time in a new design, and there's no traffic whatsoever, and it plummets. And usually what happens is, a lot of the times it's WordPress, and somebody will build it on a redesign site or a staging site or a development site, and they'll plug in this box that says hide it from Google while it's being built. But then somebody forgets to uncheck that box once it gets pushed over to the live site, and it never gets found by Google. And so all of the traffic goes away. Or that's the more common one. Or the other one is they go to a brand new URL with the redesign and rebrand. And what that does is, essentially you're starting from scratch. You get no street cred from your existing website whatsoever. You can send a redirect, but it's not quite the same. It used to be that you could do redirects from domains and you'd get a crap ton of content based off of old information, but it's not as much anymore. So the redesigns are the big one. And it's hard to tell people, oh, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to you're going to have to just give it a little time once you recheck that box. But even with redesigns, because the system changes, and even if your copy doesn't change, the code behind with web designs changes. And so it's almost like Google is like refiguring out who you are. You have a new image or something. And so that has to take some time to get back up there. And generally speaking, once you figure that all out, it's only a couple of weeks in a general sense where Google picks it back up again and you're okay. But it's a little scary at first.
And that's why that's the prime example, and the reason why SEO is so important to factor in with the redesigns, like you talked about, Barb. We had our old home inspector who we used. He had a website. I don't know how old it was, but he actually had really good rankings, he told me. And then, but it didn't look great, but it did have good rankings. So it must have been good enough to convert at least.
Yeah.
And have decent rankings. And then he had his neighbor redesign it with WordPress, but the neighbor didn't factor in SEO at all. All new pages, all new URLs, completely deleted the old site. And after a year, I think he had a new site about a year, and he was like, I don't know what happened. He redesigned the site and like all my SEO is gone. And I asked him, I was pretty new in the web design at the time, but I was like, well, did he keep the pages and he's like, no, he just created a new site. And then I was like, well, what about the old pages? Can you get them back? There was no record of like a backup. I mean, I don't know what that looked like. He basically had a strong presence, not a great design, probably not high converting copy, but he did have a good SEO framework in place. And then just with a nice little redesign without, it was an innocent mistake. He just wasn't thinking about the SEO impact, but that completely took his rankings down and affected his business big time. So that's how important, that's why these all three do come into play together. So important. Yeah, absolutely. I hope with these questions and these answers, people, if they didn't already know how important all three of these go together. I'm just going to go through some of these comments really quick as well. See if there's anything else like questions in here. Yeah, I like that one. Derek, don't call them mistakes, call them lessons learned. Absolutely right. Very positive thinking. I love that. All right. So let's wrap up. I wanted to keep it around 40 minutes, and I think we're doing good. If anybody has any final questions, please feel free to pop them in there. There's a couple that we didn't get quite to. They were a little bit outside of the topic of what we were talking today. I think but I think all of us three can go through the comments and see if there's anything we can help with and make sure that we got all the questions answered and reach out to them, which I know we all will. We're all good at that. So let's wrap up with each of us going around and offering up the one takeaway that we hope everybody walks away from for this episode. And I'll start with you, Josh. This will tie into Marco's question. I don't know if we can pull that up, Barb, but I kind of wanted to wrap up with almost like what could be the foundation for this? Because I'm sure like everyone understands the importance of all this. In an ideal world, yeah, we would have an SEO or a designer and a copywriter on the project together. But realistically, these things are probably going to be in phases. But we could still do the essentials. So Marco's question was, what should be the very basic essential pages for a website with SEO in mind? And I imagine copy in mind too. So I would just say, for everyone, as kind of like a final thought on all this, is I would have all these things in mind for sure. SEO could be something that you could do the very basics of, but you're going to maybe do more advanced SEO ongoing. But design and copy for sure could be kind of an instant, kind of win. But my recommendation as far as essential pages, home page is obviously very important, but a lot of people neglect service pages and contact pages. So if I were to focus on like 3, it would be the homepage as kind of the hub to get people where they need to go, the main service page. And I would really actually probably work on most of the SEO and copy on that, because that's going to be a converter. And then the contact page. A lot of people just throw in, and I'm raising my hand at being guilty of this for a long time. You build a beautiful homepage, beautiful services page, and then your contact page is like burnt. It's just like, oh yeah, contact us. But no, that's the page that all the money is going to, that's where that's the bridge. Money, no money is right there on the contact page. So you want to make sure that people convert on the contact page. So I would really focus on a contact page with strong copy. And I mean, contact page, you tell me, Bob, it probably isn't huge for, well, it could be SEO. It could be important for SEO, but I would think services pages are most important. And then, yeah, don't forget your contact page. Those would be my essential recommendations that kind of work in all these 3.
Great. I love that takeaway. Emily.
Shoot, my biggest takeaway. I don't know. I have like 3 answers to every question and usually 3 questions for every answer. But I think that I want us to help our clients see from all of our perspectives that it's not just like if you build it, they will come, and that there are so many, like that's part of why it's really important to have this really solid foundation, because we want to encourage our clients to share it in other ways, to bring traffic to their website in other ways, and then have this like beautiful home, like we're all talking about, where people can really, really see that and they can be confident in that. So I think, you can't just build something and it will work without all of these kind of key pieces together. So that's one. And then I think that just like helping people understand, like there are a lot of things that they can do for themselves as business owners. This is not like the highest, best use of their time. Like if something is going to cause me so much time, headache, stress, energy, I would rather just pay somebody else to do that thing. Like when I sit down and do the math on how much it's going to take me hourly to figure something out versus how much it's going to just cost me to give it to somebody else to do, I would rather pay the expert to do it. So I don't know. I gave you like 6 takeaways, but that's my style.
Great. Thanks for the 6 takeaways. It's all good. Somebody's going to get one thing out of that for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I hope.
Something I got out of that real quick, Emily, is that even as the expert or specialist in one of these areas, if you tell your client, like, I have a partner who does copy, like she's a whiz with the words on your website, or I have a partner who does SEO, Barb, she's incredible. Like she really knows this stuff. It also puts you in a trustworthy position because you're not just blowing smoke saying like, oh, I could do everything, when maybe you absolutely can't do everything or shouldn't do everything. But if you say like, my thing is design, I'm really good at design, but I have people who handle advanced SEO and advanced copy, and we work together right now together or when you need them.
I just want to say, Mark, I'll reply to your comment on YouTube because it's a really good one, but I think I'll write it out. Okay. So don't think I'm ignoring you.
So funny. I love that you guys can see. I cannot do 2 things at once. I'm going to have
No,
to
it's
figure that
really,
whole thing
that's
out.
why I'm like,
Oh, I love it. All right. So my one takeaway is that I would hope this would encourage anybody who is considering whether or not to invest in something that they don't already have of these 3, that they now have a better understanding of which one they're missing and why they should look into it some more. So I hope that it brought some clarity around if they're not getting the website traffic, which is really when they don't get leads from their website, they're like, something's wrong, that they can look at these three and be like, okay, maybe I need to relook at my messaging, or maybe I need to relook at my design. Why are people not converting? So I hope this helps people realize that. So, all right. So wrapping up, I think let's take a second for each of us to go around and just share either something that they have for the small business owner or a website. Like, how can they reach out to you if they would like to find some more information? Emily.
I have a website. That's what I have for you. It's emilyaborn.com. And I do have a podcast that is a lot of fun. We talk about marketing and content. It's called Content with Character, and you can find it on there. So I work a lot with web designers, and I speak to a lot of web designers, like in how we work together in my podcast. So thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Josh.
Yeah, speaking of podcasts, Emily and I actually just talked last week. So Emily's going to be on my podcast, the Web Design Business Podcast, here soon. So I definitely recommend tuning into that if anyone hasn't checked it out. My podcast is actually coming up on 5 years. So there's a huge backlog, but we do have playlists now to help folks get everything you need. So yeah, check out the Web Design Business Podcast. And then my community is called Web Designer Pro. So just go to webdesignerpro.com. It is heavily designed and heavily copy edited. Not really worrying about SEO on it too much yet, but that's next. So speaking of, I am living proof of
you've made it.
I'm living proof of starting with design and copy, and then next will be SEO.
There you go. All right. And as you guys might know, you're listening to the Small Business Sweet Spot podcast. That's where you can find me, or you can go to compassdigitalstrategies.com for more information. And with that, I will thank you both again for coming on, and for everybody watching the live with the questions and comments. I really loved this, and thank you again for you both coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
bye, everyone.
All right. And that wraps up this episode. Stay tuned for more episodes to help your business thrive online. We'll see you in the next Sweet Spot. Cheers.